What I would like to do is to just take a moment to provide a very short report. Again, I want to say thank you to Dr. Barron in his absence, and certainly to his staff that has been so gracious. And in fact, maybe what I'll do, I'll save my report until at least Dr. Barron or the member from his board is in the room. Why don't we move on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the Budget and Finance Committee report from Governor Perez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Am I on? No, I'm on. Great. Format today, because of the consent agenda, as we know, is a little different than the past meetings. Board staff is trying to make a concerted effort to put items on the consent agenda, some of which we've looked at today that are more routine or ministerial in nature, or where we've been well briefed and which the board is thoroughly acquainted with. However, as we go through some of these items, at least on our consent agenda component, if anybody's got any questions, please don't hesitate to call. We've all been briefed on this thing, but since it's the first time we've gone through these, I want to go ahead and touch on them fairly quickly. Items A through D of our consent agenda portion are the first notice of 4 new regulations dealing with property issues. We've been working closely with the university staffs to adopt board regulations that are specific to the state university system, and those regulations will replace the current state CFO rules, which were written under state agency rules and procedures. So I think this will be very helpful for us in the universities. Again, these are on first notice, so there's time for comment. These rules and regulations will streamline the CFO's rules, and we think there's going to be some minor administrative savings in the process. Anyway, in accordance with our regulations, item A through D are going to be on public notice, and we're going to have 30 days during which to provide those comments. Item E, the regulation is amended to include the FAU College of Medicine. Item F, if you take a look in your packet that we received today, are our annual LBR guidelines. We're trying to approve these earlier this year in order to give the universities this information prior to them sitting down and doing their annual work. We're going to be looking at those work plans at our June meeting, so we thought putting forth those LBR guidelines would be helpful today. They've been updated for whatever technical purposes, but there are no substantive changes over the last year's guidelines. Item G is our auxiliary facilities that have bond covenants requiring approval of the estimated 11-12 operating budgets. Certain of those auxiliary fund bond covenants require us to approve a 2011 to 2012 operating budget at least 90 days prior to that fiscal year. It's a standard review. We do it every year. In your folder, there's an additional FIU auxiliary budget that's not included in the agenda material that was mailed out to all of us. I know staff have reviewed the information. All universities indicate that there are sufficient revenues to cover debt service and to maintain their maintenance review fund. So at this point, Madam Chair, unless there are questions, I will move the consent portion of the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes for the Budget and Finance. Governor Perez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, what I wanted to do, and if you'll just watch the screens, I want to go through just a brief PowerPoint to kind of give some perspective on the fee conversation we're going to have and lay some groundwork for the differential tuition conversation we're going to have. And actually, some of these slides would have been relevant in our conversations with the Governor, the President, and the Speaker. As you know, our committee met at UCF, thank you President Hitt for hosting us, on February 10th with regard to fee proposals. Each university presented their fee proposal, those that were requesting. 6 universities requested 1 new fee, 1 university requested 2 new fees, and 1 university requested an increase to an existing fee that has a statutory cap. Under the new legislation, we have the ability to make those recommendations as well. The Budget Committee will make a recommendation on each fee proposal in a little bit. Just to lay some groundwork, though, and to set the stage, and again, in preparation for the differential conversation, we had asked the universities to give us 4-year projections. They were non-binding projections, but what they expected might be needed over the next 4 years on the tuition side and on the fee side. All universities have proposed over the next 4 years an increase in existing fees. They've all proposed tuition differential and fee increases that would add somewhere between $483 to $631 per 30 credit hours to students. And new fees, and the new fees would add an additional $30 to $143 for additional credit hours. To give you some perspective, if you look at this slide, this will show you that the total tuition and fees a student pays, based again on 30 credit hours in a year, since 07-08, the year which we first had the budget cuts, tuition and fees have increased 40%, or about $1,500, and it also shows some of the fees that we're about to look at. At this point in time, fees make up 1/3 of the tuition and fees the students contribute. So of their total spend, 1/3 of it are fees. This is a graph that indicates, well, it's pretty clear what it indicates, where we are as the state of Florida compared to other states. You'll see we are the blue line on the far right at 48th. The median is $7,605. We are $4,886 in fees and tuition. Again, 48th in the state. National, by the way, that little note up top, you can see the national average increased 8.3% and Florida increased 11.5% from last year. So if we're increasing 3.5% more, or 3.2% more than the national average, I think we're going to stay at 48 at this pace for a long time. This one is an interesting slide. This will show where each of our 11 state universities ranks compared to the U.S. average. Unfortunately, the U.S. average isn't broken out by fees and tuition, but if you look, you've got the yellow is our tuition, the blue is our fees. The SUS average is 64% of the U.S. average. So it's one thing when we go around and say we're number 48. It's another thing to say we are 64% of the average of the rest of the nation. So it sort of shows, it gives you perspective as where we are as a system on tuition and fees when compared to the other states. Currently, these are the fees that we collect at the universities. We've got the athletic, health, activity, and service fee, and those are limited to 5% or the equivalent of the percentage increase in base, whichever's higher. There's the technology fees. There are financial aid, no more than 5% of tuition. We've got CITF fees. 10 universities have a transportation access fee. 2 universities have unique fees. USF has the Marshall Kreiser fee, and FSU the Student Affairs Facility Use fee. Marshall Center, I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize to Marshall, that's right.
He wants to give us a building.
I'm glad you picked that up, Dick. If you take a look now, moving into the conversation for today, as you recall, we have recently passed Regulation 7.003, dealing with the new fees, where the legislature had given us authority as a board to approve new fees. We then spent the summer and fall developing revisions to our regulations, trying to find a way to look at, analyze, screen, and approve new fees based upon legislative statute, legislative intent, and overriding system policy. We've requested each of the universities in their fee proposals include the purpose of the fee, the demonstrable student-based need that is not being met through another service or fee, the process used to determine student input in the creation of that fee, the financial impact on the students, the accountability measures put in place on the fee, proposed restrictions or limitations placed on the fee, estimated revenue and proposed expenditures. That was in the presentation package. Continuing on 7.003, the fees will be implemented only in the fall term. Once a fee is established, a fee committee must be created similar to other fee committees. Half of the composition of that committee will be students, the other half of that composition will be university personnel. And very important for us to remember, none of these new fees can be used for bonding or pledged as collateral for any loans or any obligations. Every 5 years, each Board of Trustees is required by statute to review the fee to make certain it should be continued. Any fee decreases or continuations have been, through our regulations, delegated to the Boards of Trustees to make those determinations if they want to continue a fee or reduce a fee. If they want to try to increase the fee, it has to come back to the Board of Governors. We'll be considering several fees today in today's meeting. If a fee proposal is denied today, there is an appeals process. Boards of Trustees have 5 days from today's meeting, and that will be March 29th then, to request a reconsideration of that fee by the Appeals Committee, and the Appeals Committee would meet within 10 days, by April 4th, to reconsider that appeal from the Board of Trustees. So with that said, Madam Chair, I want to go ahead and move into the fee recommendations that were made by the committee. We had a very lengthy meeting at UCF. There were several fees that were proposed. Several of those fees have been withdrawn. However, we'll go through them one at a time. There were a couple of fees where we were a little unclear, as this is the first time we've been through this fee process. We wanted to sort of get arms around legislative intent. We each had our own filters as to what we thought needed to be considered for the fees, particularly moving forward. And there were certain areas where there was some discomfort and uncertainty, two in particular. Now, those fees have both been withdrawn. However, we did ask Vicki and Tim to meet with legislative leaders and ask them a little bit more about their legislative intent when the new fee regulations and laws were approved by the legislature. What I'd like to do is invite Vicki up just to give us a brief summary of her legislative intent findings. Because again, as we said repeatedly during the meeting at UCF, this first round of fees will then set the tone for fees year in and year out and thereafter. So it's very important that we get this round right. Vicki?
Thank you, Governor Perez. As you know, when you're trying to discern legislative intent, you always start with the language that's expressly stated in the statute itself. And that's where I started. And after closely reviewing the language of the statute and talking with legislative leadership in the House and Senate Higher Education Committees and their staffs, it became apparent to us that the new fee authority delegated to the Board of Governors was intended to apply to those types of fees that are used to support new services that are that serve a demonstrative student-based need. In fact, if you look at the express language in Section 1009-2415A, it provides that the Board of Governors may approve a proposal to establish a new student fee that is specifically not authorized in Section 1009-24. The two fee proposals that were at issue both involved services that are traditionally covered by existing activity and service fees and the CITF fee, both of which are specifically authorized in Section 1009-24. Given this express language and based upon our discussions with legislative members, these are not the type of fee proposals that would be consistent with the parameters of the new delegated fee authority. Likewise, as you stated earlier, revenues from new fees are prohibited from being used to secure or repay debt. Although neither of the two proposals would have used the fee revenues coming from those fees to secure debt, one of the proposals would have permitted the university to increase its bonding capacity, and this would circumvent then the intent of the statute. So those are
Thank you,
our
Vicki.
findings.
Are there any questions for Vicki with regard to legislative intent? Recall there were two specific fees we asked them to check on, both of which have been withdrawn, but I thought the meeting was worthwhile just to gauge if we were, as a body, correct in where we felt the legislative intent was, and it seems as though we were at that point. Questions or comments for Vicki? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Vicki. At this point, Madam Chair, what I'd like to do is just present each fee at a time. I'll tell you what the committee's recommendation was. I will move the committee recommendation and we can go from there. First up is the University of South Florida Global Experience fee. President Kinsheft.
Thank you. We have pulled this item from the agenda for this meeting, but I just want to say that I appreciate those people that understand that a modern university is a global university, and something that I believe so strongly. I actually my husband and I put our money where our mouth is and said, you know, for students that grow up in Florida, have elementary, secondary, college in Florida, and then join a multinational company, the company business people have come back to us and said, why aren't you doing something to work with these people, train these students in national and cultural issues. So it is something that I believe very strongly in, and I just want to thank those members who have been supportive, and we will rework this and come back with an alternate type of fee, global fee for next year.
Thank you, President Ginshaft. And at our places, in fact, is an article about President Ginshaft's generous $1 million gift to fund this very program. Governor Husseini.
Governor Perez, thank you. I really want to commend President Ginshaft for putting the $1 million. It's like you're right, putting your money where your mouth for your money is, or whatever. And I'm really a believer of the global fee. I really am. And I think, you know, the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And we need to give an opportunity to our kids, especially a university like yours, that you have a huge Pell Grant students. These students need to be able to have the opportunity to go and experience the world, other than, you know, not just the very few that have the money to do that. So however you work it and come back in the future, hopefully we'll be able to deal with it again at some other time.
Thank you, Governor Husseini. President Rosenberg.
I just want to commend President Ginshaft for providing leadership and for her generosity and putting her money where her mouth is. I think that's very commendable, and I'd like to think that we all would do that, those of us who have the privilege of being in leadership positions.
And Governor Stavros, I sure hope everybody heard today about the match.
President Ginshaft, I must ask you this. If there's no matching funds, will you and Steve pull back your contributions?
Absolutely not.
No, it's there. It's there.
I think the horse has left the barn on that one, Governor.
You don't want the answer.
Thank you, Madam President. Moving on then, the second fee that was considered that day was the green fee from the University of South Florida. The per credit hour fee is not to exceed $1, and that fee is going to be charged to students at the Tampa and St. Petersburg campuses this fall, with other campuses having the opportunity to charge that fee in later years. USF students have been advocating for this fee since 2008. There have been 2 non-binding student referenda that showed student support. The fee would be used to establish or improve the use of renewable energy technologies or energy efficiencies to lower the university's greenhouse emissions. The committee felt that this was a new initiative supported by students, and that after 3 years, the Student Government Association would conduct another referendum to gauge students' interest in continuing that fee. The committee vote was 3 in favor, 1 against. And on the basis of that recommendation, Madam Chair, I move approval of the USF green fee.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Governor Perez.
Madam Chair, the next fee is the new college sustainability green fee, another green fee. New College presented a green fee of $1 per credit hour. New College students have been advocating for this fee since 2007. There's been 1 non-binding student referenda that showed student support of 85%, and recently a student survey showed 73% in support of the fee. The fee would also be used to support initiatives to reduce the campus's greenhouse gas emissions. The committee felt that this was a new initiative with significant student support. The committee voted 3-2 in favor of this fee, and it was approved. And as such, Madam Chair, I move approval of the fee on behalf of the committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Governor Perez.
Madam Chair, the third fee to be considered is, I apologize, Florida Gulf Coast University's recreation fee has been withdrawn. So we'll move on to University of West Florida. University of West Florida had presented 2 fees. The first student life and services facility fee has been withdrawn. The second fee was an increase in the orientation fee. UWF has brought forward a request to increase their orientation fee charge to new students from $30 to $50. This is different than the new fees we were talking about, if you recall during the slideshow. This is an increase of an existing fee with a statutory cap. This fee has a statutory cap of $35, and that fee was set and has been in place since the mid-1980s. This is a one-time fee charged to students or to new students, and it covers a comprehensive orientation program designed to acclimate students and their parents to UWF, much like many of the orientations we have on all of our campuses. Fee covers materials, supplies, staffing, and other associated expenses, and as we know, all of these costs have increased over the last several years. The fee increase will assist the university in providing the appropriate orientation experience that UWF students need. The committee vote was 4 in favor, 1 opposed of raising the cap and allowing a $50 fee, and as a result, the committee moves that this fee be approved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Governor Perez.
Madam Fee, the next fee is the University of North Florida Student Life and Services fee. UNF has requested a student life and student services fee of $4.78 per credit hour. Our regulation states that new fees are required as part of the registration and approved by the board cannot exceed 10% of tuition. This fee would be 5% of tuition, so it's well within the cap. The fee would support transformational learning opportunities, set of activities that enable students to engage in groups and exceptional educational experiences, including faculty member student research and community-based learning projects. One of the improvements UNF has stated they hope to make by implementing this fee is to improve their retention rates, particularly the transition from freshman to sophomore and sophomore to junior, and their 6-year graduation rates. They suspect they can go from 45% to 51% by 2014-2015, and ultimately 65%. The committee was pleased to see UNF focusing the fee on retention and graduation rates. It was a 5-0 support from the committee, the first one to receive a unanimous vote that day, and as such, I move that the fee be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Governor Perez.
Madam Fee, the next fee considered was the Florida State University Student Safety and Security fee, which has been withdrawn. And the final fee, Madam Chair, is the Florida International University Test Preparation fee. FIU presented a test preparation fee that will initially be only for the students in the College of Law. The fee is not part of registration for a course, so it's not subject to that 10% limitation. Generally, students that sit for the bar exam take a test preparation course. Instead of students working on their own to take the test preparation course and paying the vendor directly, FIU believes that by working with vendors or one particular vendor, selecting vendors, that those vendors may offer a volume discount to the students. So the intent is a cost-saving measure for students taking the test preparation course. FIU will not retain any portion of the fee. It's just passed directly to the vendor to cover the test preparation and course. As of the Budget Committee meeting, FIU had not settled on a vendor and a price yet, but notwithstanding, there was a vote 6-0 in favor and support of the fee, and the committee moves that it be adopted.
Second.
Any discussion? Governor Frost.
I have a question. First of all, I would like to say that the students who attend the law school at FIU have had a pretty good pass rate. You know, the average in the state is 81%, and there are only 4 schools that have been above that, and University of Florida, 86.8%, Florida State, 86.2% of its students pass first time round, University of Miami, 86, and FIU scored, not counting the first year because we didn't have too many students there, and of course those few students did pass, but this past year, 84.2% passed. My question is this. Number one, is this going to be a requirement for those taking the Florida bar when they do enroll? And the other question is, when we pick the vendor, which is a private vendor, and I did do a little research in Miami. The fees range anywhere from $1,395 up to $3,245, depending upon whether it's just a lecture or online course and so forth. Are they going to be required to take it, and are we sure we're matching the student's learning style with that private institution's delivery style, teaching style? So is it a requirement, or is it just an option for a student?
Dr. Rosenberg?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may ask our provost to respond to those questions.
Governor Frost, it is going to be a requirement for the students who are going to be sitting for the bar in Florida. There's a waiver option if the student's going to be sitting for the bar in another state. In addition to the reasons that Governor Perez gave in his summary, another very strong one is that by making it a required fee, it then becomes eligible for the calculation for the student financial aid. And so that this was particularly attractive because even though our students have been, as you point out, very successful, the current situation disadvantages the less affluent student because they're not able to pay these private fees entirely out of their pocket, whereas with the approval of this fee, then they will be able to have it as part of the financial aid. And there is a committee of students and law professors that are evaluating the various vendors to decide which one is the best one and the most appropriate for our students.
But may I just ask this? I noticed that in the comments, and your dean said that most of the students who do attend law school do want to sit for the bar. But there are many who attend law school and go into other businesses, or it's just a fabulous educational program. They're going to still be forced to pay the fee. Is that right? Whether they sit for the bar or not?
No. If they provide evidence that they're not sitting for the bar, they do not need to pay the fee. So there's a waiver. By having a required fee, but with a waiver process available, and again, this is something that we checked out with the lawyers to make sure that this then does meet the requirements for the calculation for the federal financial aid.
I just think we're getting into something where we're hiring a private vendor because it's less money, and the student then pays, and we have to make sure that the private vendor is going to be really delivering. You have the burden then of saying, I chose this vendor, and the kids can say, oh, well, look what they made me pay for, and now I've got to go take another bar exam course or something. It's just a tricky situation there, I think.
Well, and we've also anticipated that by including among the waivers if a student shows that they have chosen a different vendor on their own, that then they could get a waiver from the university fee. The difference is, of course, then that they would not fall under the financial aid calculation.
Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Governor Perez.
Madam Chair, mercifully, that concludes our first pass at new fees. I do want to take a moment and thank Tim and staff who were just Herculean in this process, the screening, the conversations, the analysis. I mean, this has been a long summer of rule writing and regulation writing and then going through the process and seeking legislative intent. There have been some bumps in the process, but staff has been extraordinary throughout, and I just want to give a moment to thank them for that. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Governor Colson has a question.
I sat through the meeting that Governor Perez chaired, and frankly, I was glad I didn't have the right to vote at the meeting because there were some tough questions. I have some concern that we have given the universities enough guidance about the types of fees we're going to approve and not going to approve, and because I really don't know where we are on this, and so I would hope that before next year, maybe we can come out with we can do some more study on this. I mean, frankly, a green fee versus the UNF fee versus what USF tried to do with the withdrawal on study abroad. They're hard. It's hard for me to get a grip on how they all differ. And if someone was wasn't smart enough to keep something out of general revenue, they can get a fee for it. But if they put it in general revenue first, but they're going to move it out later with a fee, they can't. They get caught and we say, no, you can't do that. So I would think it would be helpful in the next few months. There's a little bit of information I would like. I understand there's no data available that says what the average fees are around the country. It's accumulated with tuitions and fees. But I'd like to know what are the states doing around the country on fees, and where do we stand with those states in terms of dollars? I'm very conscious of the fact that when we let somebody take general revenue, put it into a fee, and that becomes a fee, they don't have the obligation to set aside 30% for need-based aid like they do when we give them a tuition hike. So there's a lot of different things going on here. So I would like us to think, can we give some better guidance to the universities over the next year? So next year there's a little more predictability on this and less frustrations, frankly, from the boards of trustees of the university.
Madam Chair, I'm thrilled to work with staff and a couple of volunteers to postmortem this process and kind of come out with what has been, at least from first pass, some general guidelines and general thoughts that we can either give as general guidelines, or we can then expand our regulations about however you choose to move forward. But I'd be happy to work with a couple of folks who've been on the task force all along and come up with those recommendations.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor
And
Tripp.
I can tell Tim really wants to do that, too.
Governor Tripp.
Just a comment. Someone in the legislature who's going to be an important leader year after next commented that they had reviewed what we did on the fees. They thought we did an excellent job. One of the reasons they gave it to us is because it is a very, very difficult thing to do, and they were happy that we were now doing it, and they supported every recommendation that came out of the committee, and that so that was a strong endorsement that we were on the right track, and
I agree with that.
And so I think your idea is good, but I just want to back up. I think where TICO brought us in that process, and we all served on it, I think, maybe we didn't hit it on all fours, but we were pretty close to doing what the legislature thought we should be doing. Just to answer
And
that.
I agree with that. And but could we write a rule from what we learned? And I don't know whether we can, but that's what I'm.
We'll let you know in about 2 months.
Okay.
Any other comments? Again, I too want to commend Governor Perez and staff, in particular Tim, for coming up with the process and the handling of these issues. They were very important to the universities. It was very important to us that we get it, that we would get it right, since this is our first pass. And I appreciate the commitment from the committee members to actually spend all the additional time for the committee meeting at the UCF and all the other background work to make things happen. So, kudos to you, Mr. Chairman, for all the work you're doing with your committee. Just have a couple more items I'd like to bring to our attention, and I guess one is that I'd hope that Dr. Barron would be back, and so we can officially thank him. But Trustee Hillis, thank you so much for the hospitality that's been afforded the Board of Governors and all the universities during our stay here for our meeting on yesterday and today. We just appreciate all the kindness that's been afforded from your staff, and I appreciate the time you've taken to be present with us today. So, again, thank you so much. You can make any comments if you'd like.
Thank you, and I'll pass that on to President Barron, and also he's passing it on to the staff to assist in this. Thank all our lawyer and a number of others that work hard on this.
Right. Well, no, thank you very, very much. Again, I'm pleased that we were able to have the governor, the president of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House here with us today. That was a pretty big deal. I think that it showed that they're committed to working with us, and I hope that they understand we're committed to working with them and trying to make some things happen and to advance the state university system.
Said at 2 o'clock Elvis arrived, so be ready.
Yeah, I'm sure this is the first time that we've had that many representatives from those different entities come in the same day. So we certainly appreciate their commitment to what we're doing, and I hope that they understand that we are committed to doing what we can to fulfill our constitutional responsibility while also ensuring that we're advancing the system. A couple of weeks ago, and this has happened, we've met since this time, and I failed to mention it, but I want to take an opportunity to mention that there were Carnegie classifications, and several of the institutions within our system received changes in their classification categories. UCF moved from being classified as a research university with high research activity to a research university with very high research activity. So kudos to you, Dr. Hitt, for what you're doing over at the University of Central Florida. University of West Florida moved from being classified as a doctoral research university to a research university with high research activity. And again, Dr. Benz, oh, that's not right?
No, we're not happy.
Oh, okay. I got you.
I don't know why that happened, and we're looking into it. It puts us in the wrong category.
I got you.
Not that we don't do research, we do. But it is a bit of a problem for us. We don't know how it happened, it just kind of troubles.
Well, if you would keep us updated on the status, I'd appreciate that.
It's our official status now, and it just gives us measures and benchmarks that are way out of our range.
I got it.
We're much more compatible and a better fit with where we were.
Well, and in keeping with that same vein, I wanted to mention, in fact, I know that there was some misreporting in your case, Dr. Ammons. Dr. Ammons, would you mind kind of explaining what happened and kind of let us know what's going on with the Carnegie classification for FAMU?
Well, there were doctoral students in engineering not in the count, and we got with Carnegie. They realized there was a mistake in the data, and they put Florida A&M University back to Doctoral Research University, where we were.
Great, great. I know there was some misreporting on that, so I wanted to make sure we clarified that for the record. And then also I want to note that 3 campuses at the University of South Florida, and Judy, I hope I have this right, you make sure that I'm on the right page, that were added to Carnegie list as master's colleges and universities with medium programs, and that would be USF St. Pete, USF Sarasota Manatee, and USF Polytechnic, excuse me. So I wanted to, commend those institutions within the University of South Florida system for the classifications that they receive within the Carnegie system. Something that I think we all can get excited about is that we have not 1 but 2 teams in the Sweet 16. So I want to congratulate University of Florida and Florida State University. I think both teams play tonight, I think it is, so we want to make sure that we are rooting for them. I think that, is it tonight? FSU plays tomorrow night. Is it UF that plays tonight? UF tonight? In New Orleans. So, please root our 2 schools on, because certainly the further they go, the better it makes the system look generally, and we're hoping that these, both universities will go from the Sweet 16 to the Elite 8. Our next meeting is May the 5th, which is a telephone conference call, and we're going to next meet in person on June 22nd and 23rd in Tampa. There are 2 very, very, very important matters, and I see you closing your books. We have some more things to cover. It's just we kind of did things out of order, so please. Because Governor Martin and Dottie will kill me if we don't spend adequate time on the other issue as it relates to the strategic plan. But there are 2 items that I do want to make sure that I cover that are very, very important. I think that we've heard quite a bit today about the fact that we will be losing 2 of our members before we actually have an opportunity to meet again in person. One of them is Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Smith advised us that he will be resigning as the Commissioner of Education for the state of Florida in June at the end of the school year. I want to thank you, Commissioner Smith, for your service and for your membership on the Board of Governors. You've worked tirelessly to improve the readiness of students in K-12 and the K-12 pipeline for post-secondary work, and consistently reminded us in the SUS that we need to be prepared for this huge enrollment tidal wave. I want to thank you for all your good work, and I have here a resolution that I would like to read and present to you on behalf of the board. Whereas the Honorable Eric Smith has provided dedicated service as a member of the Florida Board of Governors during his term as Commissioner of Education from December 2007 to June 11. Whereas Commissioner Smith has been an effective member of the board and has used his position to remind the board of the increasing talent coming from the K-12 pipeline, the result of a robust high school curriculum and continued emphasis on student achievement. And whereas under Commissioner Smith, student achievement has increased, graduation rates have improved, and the achievement gap has narrowed. And as Commissioner, Florida was successful in competing for and winning Race to the Top funding. And whereas during his tenure on the board and as a member of the new Higher Education Coordinating Council, Commissioner Smith has worked hard to build bridges among all the education sectors, creating a seamless system for students to navigate and to complete the degrees they seek. And whereas to all his activities as Florida's Commissioner of Education, Eric Smith has brought his leadership and his steady advocacy that every child can learn and that every school must be accountable for the education it provides. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Board of Governors meeting on the campus of Florida State University in Tallahassee on its 24th day of March 2011 do hereby commend Commissioner Smith for his contributions to the Board of Governors and to the State University system of Florida, and we do wish him well. It has been signed by all the Board of Governors, and we rise to salute.
Just a couple of
we welcome
quick words. It's been a real honor to be on the Board of Governors and serve in this capacity, representing now two governors in this role. The work of the Board of Governors, I think, is critical. I've seen, from my perspective, a huge transformation in the status of the Board of Governors and the positioning of the state university system in the state of Florida. I commend Frank Brogan and the board for making that possible. The seamless pipeline, pre-K through doctoral studies, is absolutely essential to our children, and our collective ability to protect not only what capacity there is in the pre-K through 12, protect that relationship with our state college system that is such a huge farm league for the four-year institutions in the state of Florida, and provides such broad and deep access. I think positions Florida in a very unique way in the nation, and so I think there is a great deal of opportunity here in Florida moving forward, and there's a great deal of opportunity that's already been taken and needs to be carefully and cautiously protected as we kind of continue to mature this. And I'm just pleased that it's in such great hands. Thank you all very much for your
We will certainly miss you and certainly wish you well in your next endeavor. I think you guys may have realized that this is also the last in-person meeting for our student member, Mr. Gallup Franklin, who is the student body president at Florida A&M University, as well as the president of the Florida Student Association. Gallup is actually a phenomenal student. He just returned from a 9-day trip to Russia for the Open World Leadership Center, which promotes U.S.-Russia relations. He was joined by the student body president from the University of Florida, Ms. Aston Charles, and there were only 25 students from across the public university system that were selected to participate. I think you heard the governor you just heard our chancellor say that earlier in our meeting that Governor Franklin was selected as one of the gubernatorial fellows here within the state of Florida. Gallup, I've had the opportunity to serve with several student members, and you certainly have been in that top tier of outstanding students who are, committed and take the opportunity to ensure that you understand what's going on. You're an effective member of the board, or have been an effective member of the board, as well as an effective leader for the students that you represent. So today we have a resolution that I'd like to read on your behalf, whereas Gallup Franklin has provided dedicated service to the state of Florida as a representative of the Florida Student Association on the Board of Governors, State University System of Florida from May 2010 to May 2011. And whereas Mr. Franklin has been an effective member of this board and has used his position to encourage discussion and interest in the issues affecting students in the state university system, and has been articulate in expressing the students' reservations to the university's proposals for increases in tuition and fees. And whereas as a student member of the Board of Governors, Mr. Franklin has displayed an understanding of the issues and the areas in which this board can offer leadership and vision for all the universities in the system, and has reminded the board of its responsibility to the 321,503 students enrolled in Florida's public universities. And whereas during the tenure on the board, Mr. Franklin has worked effectively to bring the state university student body presidents to the table, embracing the system's legislative agenda, recognizing that there is strength in a unified student voice. And whereas Mr. Franklin has now completed his service as the chair of the Florida Student Association and will now yield his seat on the board to a successor. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Governors meeting on the campus of Florida State University in Tallahassee on its 24th day of March 2011 do hereby commend Gallup Franklin for his contributions to the Board of Governors and to the State University System of Florida, and we do wish him well. So Gallup, on behalf of all of us, this is for you. While Gallup is going back to his seat, I would like to note that Gallup would be the first student member to serve as a vice chair as one of our committees, so I commend him for that. And Gallup, are you a pharmacy major? Is that what your major is?
Yes, ma'am.
It's pretty phenomenal, and that you started school at least on a golf scholarship as well.
Yes, ma'am.
So in addition to everything else that you are involved with, it's pretty phenomenal that you've been able to maintain the rigor of a pharmacy curriculum. So any comments that you have are welcome.
Definitely. Thank you for the resolution. I actually accepted on behalf of the Florida Student Association. I wouldn't be able to make the contribution that I've currently made this past year without their support and help with the association, and they've all worked so hard to keep it together, to keep us organized and focused, and it's just amazing to see it all crystallize finally and truly make an impact for the students that we represent. And it's been an amazing experience, but I realize it's not about me at all, so I accept this on behalf of FSA and the 320,000 students that this seat, in a sense, I guess, symbolizes. And thank you very much. It's been a great experience.
Thank you very much.